And we're back. Hi, everybody, all the Wolverine fans out there. We are back for another week of Michigan Wolverines live. Before we get started, just quick reminder: like, subscribe, share with a friend. Get this content out there, and then we've got me. Now I'm going to host today. John Diadamo is my Twitter, and of course we have the voice of college football, Mark Rogers here. Mark, how you doing?
John, I'm doing just fine. Good to see you, and hope everything's
Likewise.
going well. We will also point to our overlay or graphic up top. Thank you, Tony Altamore, for providing that, and John hosting this week and getting us set up with all sorts of good things to supplement the show. So we're ready to roll and talk about spring practice underway in Ann Arbor.
Heck yeah, life is good. Just bought a new car. Dropped 12 pounds. I mean, feeling good, and then getting to be part of this. So it's been a solid month. But I did want to thank Tony for helping kind of get this set up, as well as Joey Foster, who's been incredible, and we've had a bunch of calls, and they've done a great job kind of helping get this new look and everything set up. So appreciate you guys a lot if you're in the chat or if you see this later. Reminder that on this show, what we're going to do is, if you'd like to have your comment or question discussed, posted, we're going to ask you to send a super chat. Now, we are going to be doing shows, including one on Monday, Big Ten call-in show, where we will be taking calls and comments. So that is an opportunity. It's a much longer show. This is an hour. We've got a ton to cover. So please, if you'd like to make your voice heard, ask a question, give a comment, just send us a super chat, just $2, whatever you can. It really helps the channel. So we do have a bit of more of a loop closing than a breaking news story, where Michigan is keeping Jesse Minter because the Eagles have gone another direction with the defensive coordinator. So all of those things that we talked about last week, don't worry about it. Basically forget about all that because he's staying. This is what happens.
It does. This is the college football off season, and this is not just the college off season that we've seen in previous, I will say, decades, but as we progress into the future, I think these coaching staffs, and it's always been a nomadic lifestyle for these coaches, and especially assistant coaches. All you have to do is grab anybody's resume who's been around the block a few times, and you will see 2 and 3 years at a stop, sometimes 1 in consecutive years at various stops. They are all over the place, and until they get that gig that really suits them, that's paying a ton of money, and if they have aspirations of being a head coach, then that's what it is for quite some time. But I think that's even been ramped up in recent years as programs have become much more aggressive about not looking for anyone who's just on the open market and available. Had this conversation a few times on other shows, just the Miami coaching staff. And I bring them up because they're the most recent example, but they are not alone in actually picking off coaches who are transitioning from another team anyway. So, for example, had it been at, let's say, Louisville last year, got a job at Cincinnati, had only been there for 2 or 3 weeks in the off season, and then they're changing jobs again, even during the off season, after having taken another job after the 22 season. Nothing like that here, but again, just to underline that, just look at the Michigan coaching staff since the winter of 2020 and into 21, when they really made some changes to shake things up, get a little bit younger, a little bit more ingenuity. And because of that, then they've kind of consistently had this approach that they're going to stay aggressive. They're going to get the people that they want. And obviously, as people succeed and as the program and the team succeeds and finds success, then there are going to be opportunities for the coaches. So it kind of works in both directions, that if you're ultra successful, then coaches have opportunities. If you are underachieving, then coaches are sent packing.
Yeah. Kirk Ferentz is like the exception where he used to be more the rule. I mean, you used to have coaches stay for 20, 30 years at a program, and now every couple of years it's like you're doing the shuffle. So you got to have those tough conversations with family, friends, anybody who's like looking to get into any type of relationship with you, that, hey, this is the life that's going to happen. We're going to probably be moving around a couple times. Like, got to have those conversations. I think now, for sure. So we do have a reminder, long awaited. We now have a Voice of College Football merch site. So I posted the link right in the chat, and it's also in the description. Go over there, get yourself a Voice of College Football coffee mug, shirt, get some for your family and friends, and everybody can walk around in Voice of College Football paraphernalia all over the place. But it's very exciting.
I've got a stack of it sitting close by to me, just because I wanted to order. And I made this comment to a friend just today who texted me and said that they ordered a few things. And I said, I ordered 7 or 8 items. I just wanted to make sure that the transaction process would work, number one. Number two, that the items showed up in the kind of quality that we anticipated and that we wanted and selected. So I've tried it out to make sure, and I've been wearing my 2 or 3 items in particular a lot. So I think everybody's going to be pleased and happy with what they select.
Absolutely. Yep. Got myself a coffee mug, got myself a shirt. And if you get multiple items, you even get a little percentage off. So get a lot of things, because you save a little bit that way. All good stuff. So we got, this is one that we just had so much content last time, and with Isaiah here, but I did want to make sure we talked about this. We had the FanDuel odds released, all the betting for the 2023 season, and while the Michigan State one made sense, I think it was like 16 points or whatever favorite, which you would hope with a team that very much underperformed last year that would happen. But against Penn State, which is at their house, 1.5, and then at the Big House, favored by 1. Now that is still notable because I think this is the first time in a little while that Michigan has been favored at all. But I do think it's interesting just how small that point spread is, like so small there.
If I remember correctly, Ohio State was favored by about a touchdown last year, and they were favored by about a touchdown on the road the year before. They didn't play in 2020. Ohio State in 2019 might have been a 10 or 11 point favorite, I would guess. I don't exactly remember the line. I know that when Michigan came to Columbus in 2018, that would have been the last time that Michigan was a favorite.
That was my guess. Was either 16 or 18.
About a 4-point favorite in that game.
Yeah. It's been a few years, and it's finally, I think that people are starting to realize, okay, once was a fluke, and I thought last year was a magical, glorious fluke, and then it was going to go right back to business as usual, and then very last second, I changed my prediction because I had Ohio State. Like, we had talked about this at the start of last season, where you had Michigan 10-2, I had 11-1 with a 3-point loss to the Buckeyes, and then at the very one day before, I changed it to Michigan because I just had that feeling. Sometimes you just have it. But now this is here's where we are. So
yeah. So I do think that for the reasons that Ohio State is switching out quarterbacks, and obviously every time that has happened in recent years, it hasn't been an issue. Right. Justin Fields, Dwayne Haskins, CJ Stroud, they all had no experience whatsoever. Right. The closest thing was Dwayne Haskins throwing a couple passes and really bailing out Ohio State against Michigan the previous season when JT Barrett went down in the second half at the Big House, and Dwayne Haskins came in and converted one 3rd and 18 in particular. That was huge in that game. JT Barrett was not the starter at the beginning of 2014. Braxton Miller got hurt in training camp. JT Barrett was thrown into the fire too. So he was a first-time starter, didn't even win the job. And, they took off and eventually won a national championship. So the track record for first-year quarterbacks is pretty good at Ohio State.
Yeah, and for any shortcomings that Ohio State has, the one thing that I don't think anybody can disagree with is that Ryan Day knows how to pick a quarterback, and Brian Hartline knows how to recruit and coach first-round draft pick wide receivers. So I understand that's going to continue to be the case every year that both of them are with the university. But at the Big House, when there's now been 2 consecutive not like 1-point victories, but significant victories. It's interesting. So I think also maybe the Georgia game had something to do with that because of the fact that it was a 1-point loss to Georgia, and some could argue Ohio State probably should have won the game. So maybe that has something to do with it too.
Yeah, and all that said about Ryan Day and before that Urban Meyer's ability to groom a first-time quarterback who had zero experience into a star, there's still uncertainty there. It's not automatic. It's still 2 quarterbacks. Now, at least they have the option of 2 quarterbacks who are vying for the position. People believe Kyle McCord, but it could be Devin Brown. But everything else, aside from roster talent, I will put that still on the side of Ohio State. If you just go strictly by the metrics of the recruiting rankings, that's still on Ohio State's side. But Michigan has won the game 2 consecutive years and won it in physical fashion, has been the physically more imposing team. They have also just with this game at the Big House, and then also just with everything that they've got coming back, just the losses are minimal for this team. It's basically a really good corner, really good receiver, maybe the best center in college football, and another great offensive lineman. So I'm talking about Green, I'm talking about Hayes and Oluwatimi, and I'm talking about Ronnie Bell, of course. And that's pretty much it. Mike Morris, Mazi Smith, really good players, but not guys that can't be replaced. The productivity is just high coming back. So all logic says that Michigan should be a favorite.
Yeah. And what was even more notable is that in this last game, Michigan was forced to almost play Ohio State style football for half of the game, right? Because the run kind of got shut down. And then all of a sudden, Cornelius Johnson turned into Odell Beckham Jr. out of nowhere. So I mean, that's another thing that I think people weren't really expecting that. They said JJ could, they even said that on air. They said the kid couldn't throw a deep ball, albeit he was pretty wide open, but still. It was something. So a couple of shows that are coming up. So every week on Thursdays, Mark and Steve go at it on one topic and just no holds barred. And they go at it, and it's called The One, and it's a debate show that we have every week. And we started early at 4:30, and we do some call-ins. I was the warm-up act on the last show. That was fun. And got to chop it up a little bit. And then Steve came in. So come on in at 4:30, and you got tomorrow, and y'all are, I'm sure, gonna have another good one for us.
We sure hope so. It's always fun. I know that. I hope everyone enjoys it. I know it's a good time, and Steve, of course, keeps me on my toes. So I got to be ready to wage battle.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think it's better than some of the actual shows on TV. To be honest with you. So tell your friends, tell your neighbors, tell your Uncle Ronnie, whoever. Also, big news next Monday, this coming Monday, by popular demand, and we've been talking about this and we've been working it behind the scenes for quite some time now, we're going to have the Big Ten live show, starting at 6 with Mark Rogers, voice of college football, and then some knucklehead at 8 is gonna come in and talk for a couple minutes and maybe take some calls. So, how about that? We're excited about that one.
Excited, yeah. So some of your favorite media people will be dropping by, and we will take your calls as well. I am certainly going to tee it up with a number of topics that are on my mind concerning Big Ten football each and every week, and then we will open it up to all of you to call the show, and certainly bring on some of the people that you really like to see on the various shows and so forth. But at the same time, we always are inviting and welcoming requests and recommendations on new folks that you would like to see join us here at the Voice of College Football. So if you've got any requests for any writers or media that you would like to see, just let us know.
Yeah, and maybe we'll do another one of those tweet-a-thons someday. We'll just take 5 minutes and just tweet at somebody. And just get the full power of the voice of college football.
Yes, the folks out there don't realize what kind of power they wield.
Absolutely. So yeah, please stop by. It's going to be great. I'm really excited to have this, especially with all the Big Ten fans in our audience and the Big Ten fans on the Patreon, which we'll talk about later, but you should join that. So we have seen, I think, one of the biggest coups of the 2023 football season was bringing Blake Corum back as the starting running back for Michigan. So we talked about the quarterback room last week with Isaiah. Now we're talking about running backs, and Blake Corum coming back for his for one more year, thanks in part to the One More Year Fund. And everybody who was part of the One More Year Fund came back for one more year. So I think Justin was part of that too, Justin Rowe.
So this was an actual thing.
This was a thing. This was a fund.
Which, I don't remember before NIL, it would never have existed, and still now I got to kind of do a double take and be like, okay, all right, I guess that is in play. Sure, people can do that.
It's the equivalent of, it's literally bringing back like I don't know. It's like if you brought back like Reggie Bush, or you brought back. I'm not comparing him directly, but he actually had really good stats stacked up to Reggie Bush's Heisman year. So listen, I think this is huge for Michigan. I think this is this can make the difference between winning or losing a playoff game. This can make the difference between winning or losing against Ohio State, Michigan State, Penn State. It's huge. And so I guess the question that I keep wondering about, maybe it's partly because of the One More Year Fund, but I think, you have to think Blake Corum would have been drafted, and maybe not first round because of the injury, but maybe third or fourth round. He'd probably have gotten semi-decent signing bonus, and he could have proved himself at any number of great NFL teams, but he did decide to come back to Michigan. I'm thinking it's kind of partly because there's just that unfinished business, right? It's kind of been that Lincoln Riley level. No offense to Tim, Tony, anybody, USC people, but that Lincoln Riley level of like, okay, now it's winning conference championships, beating the rivals. Okay, that's great. And then you get to the playoffs and you lay an egg. Okay, so how can maybe he thinks he can be that it factor to kind of bring it up a little bit. What do you think?
Well, I think we'll never know, of course, what would have happened had he been in the game against TCU. It certainly didn't look like he was needed on the first play of the game. But after that, I'm not going to say that certainly Donovan Edwards is a highly capable back, but different backs are suited for different games and different defenses and have different styles. And even between the two of them, even though their skill sets aren't that dissimilar, their styles within those skill sets are kind of dissimilar. And Yeah, we will see about Blake Corum's health. We certainly wish him all the best and want him to recover. And I have to believe that this is on the precautionary side in regards to holding him out of spring practice.
Right.
But if this lingers, then that number 3 back becomes an issue or a concern or a question mark, where it
Oh,
becomes
yes.
even more important who is that next guy, because here we were early in the 22 season, it was Donovan Edwards
Mm-hmm.
that wasn't on the field, and Blake Corum pretty much carried everything by himself.
Right.
And I got to think Donovan Edwards is up to the task, but the best situation is to have 2 guys, if not 3, but 2 guys that you can count on. So Michigan's all set as long as everybody's healthy, because
Right.
that third back's going to be carrying the ball with a 4 touchdown lead in the fourth quarter. So that doesn't
Absolutely.
much matter.
Well, and there were two times in the TCU game specifically where Blake Corum would have made the difference, I think, between a touchdown and not getting any points on the board. The Philly Ann Arbor special, maybe they would have not gone for that if Blake Corum was there to be able to get it in. And then also that time that they called it was like the half-yard line, when they thought they had the touchdown and then they got called to the half-yard line. Blake Corum, I think, gets that yard every single time. So those are 2 specific moments just in the TCU game that could have made the difference between the national championship game and being again on the outs. So I think that's
Do
pretty notable.
do Michigan people talk about the spotting of the football and how it was not correctly spotted at the 1-yard line? And I'm not even talking about the touchdown play or the would-be touchdown play. That aside, and I was of the opinion that that was a touchdown, but I was okay with the ruling because I wasn't it wasn't definitive for me based on the camera angles. I didn't know for sure, but I
Yeah,
thought it was a touchdown. But once it got spotted, I don't know how that ball wasn't that close to the goal line.
right.
And they set it back like at the half-yard line.
Yeah, it would have had to be like, yeah, I don't know. The spotting was definitely questionable. But either way, Blake Corum gets that in. I mean, just period. He gets that in. So that's the difference. And so that when you have a talent like that returning, there you go. That's the difference between winning a playoff game and not.
Do you remember
Um,
what the sequence of plays were?
the sequence of plays,
Not
what
not to
like
put
right?
you on the spot, but from the half-yard line, the sequence of plays, they had 4 plays to get in
Yeah,
a half yard.
yeah, and they
I just
couldn't.
remember the fumble. Or
Right?
was it a fumble? Yeah. Oh,
Yeah, yeah. I think
so
so.
was that on the first play?
I think it
I'll have
was
to look that
first,
up.
or
I
yeah,
don't
I'll have to
remember the
go back to the
sequence of
exact.
plays.
Anybody in the chat, let us know. I'm pulling it up.
I'm just curious as to what they did from the half-yard line, because at first I thought they didn't get stopped 4 plays, did they? Then I remembered the fumble.
Right. Um, yeah. So I think that back to kind of this, and yeah, everybody, people, let us know. I'm sure somebody will. So in terms of Donovan Edwards, right? When you get into the psyche of somebody like that who thought that they were going to be the guy in 2023, right? Definitive, like a Bijan Robinson, like a Will Shipley. I know that Jordan's in chat. Somebody like that, and now he is again splitting carries. And so, how is that going to work? You have 2 NFL caliber running backs at this point fighting for time. And is it going to be 50-50? Is it going to be maybe for the first 3 games when you're playing the East Carolina Pirates? Maybe you go with more Donovan and more CJ Stokes and Cole Cabana. And then, so maybe they'll do that where they treat games 1 through 3 like preseason almost. I don't know.
You just hit me with an idea for a poll question on our community page. I want to know who Michigan fans believe, first of all, who should be the number 3 running back. And then another poll this week is going to be who is better, Blake Corum or Donovan Edwards.
That's interesting because I think it depends on where the ball is. right? Because if it's at the half yard or 1 yard or 1.5, I mean, I'm giving it to Blake Corum every single time. But Donovan Edwards, I think he can manage some of that too. But I think he's really effective on the outside, right? And being able to kind of take those perimeter runs. But they can also each other. They can alternate that too. Like Donovan could hypothetically run it in, and I think we saw that a couple times throughout the year. And Blake could be on the outside. So I mean that I'm assuming we'll see it'll shake out to be a 50-50 towards the end, at least between those two. And then you also have Stokes, Cabana, Isaiah Gash, some of those guys. Maybe even you throw Khalil Mullings in for one or two. Maybe he gets to throw the ball again. Who knows?
Did he throw the ball in the playoff game?
He did not throw the ball in the playoff game, just in the Ohio State game.
Oh yeah, they pitched it downfield to Colston Loveland, I believe.
Yep. That was fun. That was I think they just wanted to mess with Knowles' what he was doing and just kind of throw that wrinkle in. So when plays work, then you're a hero, and when you don't work, it's the Philly special, and you're losing to TCU. So that's the difference right there. And then you've got this situation as you alluded to earlier, Mark, like who's going to be the next Donovan Edwards? Who's going to be that person who's going to get the carries needed to then in 2024 become, because I think both of them, Corum and Edwards, could be going to the NFL. So if both of them go to the NFL, then what do you do behind them? Like because like Michigan's offense requires an elite or a very, very good running back. And Mike Hart's a great running backs coach, but he might move on. He's probably going to get opportunities. So you got to have somebody who can take on that spot. And I'm dubious that CJ Stokes is the guy. I've seen him in person at the Illinois game when we were all dealing with the 10-degree wind chills, and we couldn't feel our feet. But I saw CJ Stokes, and I was just like, I don't really see him as the guy. Even with a lot more practice, I could see a Cole Cabana or somebody else taking that spot. Not sure.
Yeah, I don't have a strong opinion on that, except for I know that when Blake Corum left the game against Illinois, that game in particular, and there might have been a couple other times during the season, maybe Iowa comes to mind for some reason, that I was not impressed with anybody that they threw into that number 3 role. I know Kai Stokes on one particular occasion fumbled the only play that he had the entire game, I believe. So again, guys ramp up their skill level and their comfort level during an entire off season of winter workouts, spring ball, and fall camp. And so they were recruited and signed for a reason. Now, obviously, not all of them succeed and become starting level players, but I got to think that they've got somebody there who's going to be either the guy that can step in, God forbid, Blake Corum continues to be hurt or have issues, or Donovan Edwards, where they need one of those other backs in the back room to be the number 2 guy.
Yep. So I think that's just a thing to keep an eye out. And I think and look for Cole Cabana to, Jim Harbaugh runs a meritocracy, and so it's going to be who's the best at the position. We know that Corum and Edwards are basically sharing first the starting running back. So then you've got Stokes in there. We'll see. I think Cole Cabana could overtake him by fall camp. I really do. But they'll be monitoring it closely, and I'm sure they'll be doing all kinds of competitions and stuff like Harbaugh always likes to do. I mean, he did it literally with JJ and Cade. If he could do it with JJ and Cade, then he's gonna be testing them heavily.
I was about to make the comment that I know Cole Cabana was a decent level prospect but they have certainly not followed up the Donovan Edwards signing with somebody of that caliber, at least based on the recruiting rankings.
Right.
But again, there is Hassan Haskins, and certainly you never know about who could emerge as a frontline player.
Absolutely. Then, of course, you've got Isaiah Gash, who, again, I watched him. Nothing really struck out to me as super special. Khalil Mullings had a couple of kind of cool plays, including like we just talked about against Ohio State. I don't really think he's going to be the answer to the short yardage question. I think they were trying to mimic what they did with Hassan Haskins, where they brought him in as a running back. But I don't know if it's the same. I think they're trying to repeat that magic, and they nowhere near. But Hassan Haskins is, I think, that type of fluke happens 1 in a million. Okay, so reminder, and we do have some knuckleheads in the chat right now who are part of our Patreon. So if you join the Patreon, patreon.com/MarkRogersTV, or just search MarkRogersTV, and we have a lot of Wolverines in there. We have a 24/7, 365 Discord chat. We have watch parties. We have during this season, we'll watch film, we'll watch games together, and there's all kinds of cool stuff. There'll be the betting guide. I'm sure you'll be doing some more of that in the season, and so lots of ways to kind of have that inside track to maybe for betting, or maybe for just enjoying some time on a random Saturday and hanging out. So join that.
It is a good time. And I don't know exactly. I've got a couple theories on where the term knuckleheads came from. I've got a couple theories.
Absolutely. No, it just kind of took off. It's one of those things. And so we do have, okay. So we have, of course, the running backs had to be, I think, the focus because Michigan is such a run heavy offense, but you can't neglect, of course, the wide receiver room, which did have a big surprise when Cornelius Johnson also decided to, thanks to in part to the One More Year Fund, decided to come back. And he is, of course, a very valuable player in the X position, and does a great job doing that. And obviously broke off late. I think partly, I know everybody gets on me for my Josh Gaddis dislike, but I think that he was a reason that Cornelius Johnson may not have performed to his potential. And now with different coaching, he started emerging late and had an amazing couple of catches in the Ohio State game, which could have easily made the difference between it could have been a very, very, very different game, I think, without those couple of catches. So he's back. That's big.
Yeah. This Michigan wide receiver room, no Ronnie Bell. So there's a leadership component, and there is a skill level in regards to technique in terms of being a polished route runner, a professional of sorts in regards to how he approaches his craft. Not to say that these other guys aren't hard workers or that they haven't refined their skills, but to me, Ronnie Bell set the standard in that room for being the guy that brought it in a professional manner to the field and
Right.
and really worked his craft. And now he has set himself up, despite 3-star status coming out of high school, as being a productive receiver, hopefully one day in the NFL. So I think that the room is full of a number of guys who are capable. But I don't know. Is there a number one in this room?
Yeah, that's why I've kind of put it in this way, where it's like here's the starters of each position, because I don't really. I mean, you could argue Cornelius Johnson, but Rowan Wilson also has had his moments of greatness and his moments of dropping balls. It's kind of this pattern where this has been a glaring weakness of Michigan's offense for years now, right? The talent has gone down slightly. Some of the 5-star receivers or any that we did have are not here anymore. And so you've got kind of a situation, I will say, in the slot position. You currently have, I think it's a pretty good bet that AJ Henning, at least in spring ball, is slot. But I would argue that you want to look for two people, Tyler Morris, who's been in the slot, but also Darius Clemens. If there's an opportunity for him to become a starter, I think it's going to be taking over AJ Henning's slot. I see that as a glaring weakness. AJ Henning has mostly been used in reverse situations, in short yardage, in the offense, and I could even see him going over to running backs. He might be a solution when inevitably CJ Stokes doesn't cut the mustard. Maybe AJ Henning can be used in a running backs position to help that game. But look out for Darius Clemens and Tyler Morris. Definitely. Also do have Roman Wilson coming back. That's also great. Again, kind of had some mediocrity, right? And so really, can we kind of get away from that mentality that 2019 to 2021? I think there were some moments of greatness in 2022, and let's see what happens next. But one of the questions that we had, obviously with kind of the key running backs out, I believe both Corum and Edwards are both being held out, but someone can correct me if I'm wrong. That's just what I was reading. But, there's a question of, could Sharon Moore and Jim Harbaugh finally start working on the pass game a little bit more, right? Could this be an opportunity during spring football for maybe a little bit more of the pass game to kind of gel together?
Well, I think most Michigan fans believed that the start of the 21 season and the start of the 22 season was the time to work on that, and that didn't happen. Now, of course, we're talking about practice versus
Right.
To steal from a few famous lines out there, we're talking about practice versus in game. But yeah, you would think so. No Blake Corum on the field. We know exactly what Donovan Edwards can do. We do want to differentiate between the rest of the running back room and get a feel for who can do what and who's our best option as the third guy. But other than that, let's pour our time and effort into the passing game.
Absolutely. And like I said, I think that you saw improvement finally in 2022, but the other fact, there's actually, so there was somebody saying, oh, yeah, Edwards, Donovan Edwards can catch the ball too. Absolutely. And once he's healed, he was restricted in those final few games. If you remember, he had that injury. So he was used a lot more strictly running, but he did catch a few balls. When he's fully healthy, I do agree he's going to be used in the passing game and the running game, as well as a kind of a key threat. So that's definitely very valid. Colston Loveland, we will be touching on tight ends next week, and O-line and tight ends. Obviously, Colston Loveland is a beast when it comes to receiver, but his blocking abilities, let's see, right? It's kind of a, can he be that legendary blocker type too, or is he could he be moved to wide receiver? Because he really did do a great job in receptions and kind of almost bailed us out in a couple key moments that we really kind of needed that to happen. So yeah, Colston Loveland could be a thing. Donovan Edwards is definitely going to be a thing. So yeah, hopefully they can work on the pass game this spring, and then for fall camp, really just kind of build on that. Also having JJ McCarthy, I know that we're not talking about quarterbacks this week, but having JJ McCarthy actually go through spring reps, When he was out last time, that's pretty huge, right? And as the starter.
Yeah, he is going to have the full array of training opportunity and development opportunities that he was not afforded last year because of an injury. So it was a difficult and challenging situation for him to take over as the full-time quarterback, not having that full off season to him. So we've seen it countless times where guys of his ability, uh, even if they did have that first off season to develop into that first season, that still that second off season leading into the second season is still important and still leads to a big jump in level of play. But considering that he didn't have that many reps and was working through an injury for the entirety of a large portion of the offseason, I think we need to keep that in mind. A lot of people that were a bit rough on him and his performance last year.
Yep, absolutely. And it does look like so. I was just kind of looking at some of the play-by-play when we were talking of the TCU game. It looks like right before the Rowan Wilson pass, there was the interception. So Duggan's pass was intercepted by Rod Moore. So that was what happened, I guess, before. So yeah, then you have the the Rowan Wilson pass, the 50 yards, and they rolled it not a touchdown, and then Khalil Mullings no gain, fumble, recovery. So yeah, they were not able to capitalize on on a gift that you really in that game you needed to capitalize on every single gift because TCU was rolling. I mean, they really were just. I think they were on a mission to win a playoff game, and especially with some of the smack talk. So there's your update. But just to wrap up on running backs here. Obviously, we do have some other ones in the mix. Some new names that were recruited for the 2023 because we kept hearing about Frederick Moore. We kept hearing about Morgan. Tyler Morris is somebody who could very easily take over in the slot position, as we talked about. Marion Walker. So what I'm hoping is that they really treat this opportunity in the spring as really just to try all of them out. And I hope to see them all in the spring game. The spring game is going to be really interesting because you have a lot of unproven talent that have been, which is the case every spring game. But I think especially here when I think it's double as important when you're about to lose everybody, right? Not everybody, but you're going to lose a lot of people after this year. Maybe even your head coach, right? Michigan, I mean, we've been having this song and dance every year, and it's almost shaping up to be like a Michael Jordan last dance type scenario where a lot of people are leaving after this year and going to the NFL. So you gotta find out what you have behind the stars.
And that's where we will see, and we're a long ways away, but in 2024, as to whether Michigan's, I will say, decent recruiting efforts will catch up with them.
Yeah. Decent. I think even being a little generous, I think in some areas, when you've made it to 2 playoff appearances and you've won 2 Big Ten championships and beat your rivals. I think that the flirtation, maybe with the NFL, maybe the NIL, not name, image, likeness, not being where it should be. All of those things are probably factors, as we know from what Cade McNamara said, right, on the Jordan Palmer podcast, which if you haven't listened to that, I know it's painful, guys. I know it's painful. But if you want to have an objective look at college football, you got to look at these things. And he made some I think it was one of the most interesting interviews in a way, because you don't normally get that player perspective. I think you get the media perspective, which they have their own agenda, right? They have their own kind of things that they want to get clicks. It was refreshing almost, even though Cade did take 1 or 2 shots at us at various points on his way out. I think it was interesting to hear that Iowa and Nebraska have a solid NIL setup, right? So that was something I didn't know before listening to that, and also just how the recruiting process actually goes, like versus what you think you know versus what you actually know. So I recommend, even though it's painful, it's almost like taking your medicine, but like it's still interesting to me to hear about that, and that might be a reason I think for the recruiting, some of the recruiting challenges that have existed.
Well, sometimes one of the best ways to find out what really is going on in a particular program is to listen to the players and the coaches that have left the program, because obviously the players and coaches that are currently in the program are going to give you the best side of things and going to play it close to the vest, typically. And understandably, they're trying to protect the brand and protect their locker room and their guys. And but to hear from, even though it might be tainted slightly with a little bad blood and a little bit of resentment.
And Jordan Palmer purposefully egging him on. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think Cade handled that pretty well, actually, because I think Jordan like was trying to get some stuff out of him, like
Yeah.
trying to get the clickbait, trying to get the drama. And Cade, for the most part, was tried to be kind of Switzerland on it, kind of neutral in
Yep.
terms of not like panning one particular school. So it's an interesting perspective, and one that we don't really get very often. Reminder, everybody, we all do it. Pretty much. Some people don't. If you live in a cave, that's fine. But most people, at some point in their lives, they have stuff going on. Maybe they want to get an air fryer. Maybe they want to get a bulk purchase of things. Who knows? Maybe you want to get, I don't even know. But you go to Amazon. All we ask is that you take 2 seconds to just go to the link in the description of every single video that Mark has, and just shop through that link. It's the same exact experience. And that way, you always say this way better than I do about the $1 trillion Amazon. What do you say about how Amazon has this much and Voice of College Football has this much?
Yeah, I said that today during
Yeah,
our call-in show, because that I came across that figure maybe 6 months ago, and it just kind of hit me right upside the head. Amazon is worth 1.7 trillion. Like, sometimes we're used to hearing billions, and even that's an astronomical number, but trillions, 1.7 trillion Amazon's worth. So yes, folks, we here at the Voice of College Football, we're only worth 1.3 trillion, and we're looking to catch Amazon.
Yeah, absolutely. So it really is. It's 2 seconds and then you're done. And then again, a reminder about our brand new merch site. This is huge. I mean, this has been something that people have asked us for, and you and Joey Foster obviously has been instrumental, I know, in getting this set up. But what I like about it is that there's so much versatility, right? There's not just like one or two. Some merch sites are really sparse. They have like a couple of things, but this one really, like, you can deck everybody out if you wanted to with stuff.
You can't.
And I'm a sucker for a good coffee mug, so that was like the first thing I got. Like, coffee mug, done. Use that in any situation.
I have yet to get the coffee mug, so I want to check that out. I've got a lot of other items, but I got to get the coffee mug.
Okay, I am going to show this one. Okay, thanks, Mike. So Mike, I want to say something about Mike. He has been, like, such a devoted listener, and just so supportive in chat, and to all of us in the comments, and it's been amazing. And I wanted to give him a shout out because he's just been awesome lately.
Mike, thank you for being here. We appreciate your support, and always enjoy seeing your name in your comments. And I will say to Mike and everybody else, we want to make sure that we're delivering quality merchandise, quality gear for you. So if you have any type of feedback, whether that's positive or negative, certainly get back to me at MarkRogersTV at Gmail. Let me know. And because we want to be accountable for this, and we want to do it the right way. And that's why I ordered 7 or 8 things, to make sure the transaction process worked. I had members of my family order a few things to make sure that they were delivered to their destinations and that the products were quality and that they showed up. And so we've tested this out, but still want to make sure that we're doing right by all of you. So please let me know.
Absolutely. Yeah, check that out. And yeah, literally, Mark's email has been scrolling here the entire episode and last entire episode too. So use that if you have feedback, but also it's a good reminder. If you're a business, you want to market your product or service to a group of enthusiastic college football fans, consider a sponsorship. We're obviously launching this new exciting Big Ten show on Monday. There's the opportunity to sponsor this show. There's the opportunity to sponsor the main voice of college football, the one. I mean, everything's fair game, right, Mark?
It absolutely is. So we can certainly match your needs, your wants. There's been a lot of sponsorship agreements that we've had in the past and partnered with people that were just so fervent about their particular team that they wanted certainly to support Oklahoma or Nebraska, Iowa. But others want more from a national standpoint, obviously based on your product and based on your geographic customer base. So we can obviously, we will present to you what we've done in the past, but we will also ask you what is going to be of best benefit to you. And so we work through all of that to make sure that you're satisfied.
Absolutely. So, like an example, we've been kind of running through these housekeeping notes in between topics. So, some of those could easily be a business, right? And so, can definitely help you out there. A reminder that we have some really exciting shows that if you're a Michigan fan, you should be checking out. In addition to this show every Wednesday, you do have the one with Steve Deace, who of course does the Michigan podcast. That will be starting tomorrow at 4:30. Get here at 4:30. Don't wait till 5. Get here at 4:30. We have fun the first half hour. Mark usually takes a call or two, chat and have a good time, and then it's almost like a drinks reception before the main event, or a cocktail reception or something, right before. And so that's kind of what it's like at 4:30, and then you get to the heart of it at 5, and Mark and Steve battling it out. And then the Big Ten, I didn't change this one, sorry, but the Big Ten, the Big Ten live show, starting Monday at 6 p.m. And I'm pretty pumped about that one too. So check those out. And then, Mark, you're not going to like this one, but I ended cover your eyes. So I ended the last show because we're at the end of the show at this point. I ended the last show when I was with Isaiah, which, by the way, Isaiah's welcome back anytime. We love Isaiah. But one of the mottos that Michigan has, in their gym, in their everything, there was a mentality shift after 2020, right? What are you doing to beat Ohio State today? So I'm asking every Michigan fan in the chat, just think about it. What are you doing to beat Ohio State today? Are you joining an NIL group? Are you just watching some film or whatever? I mean, there's always something. So it's a nice little motivation.
My question is, who came up with that slogan first? Because Ohio State has the same slogan. If you said 2020 and that's exactly when it started, then Ohio State was way ahead of the game.
I mean, it did take quite a few years before the emphasis was kind of matched, because I think that back when it was Urban, like, I think that there was kind of this focus on, you never lose to, I'm not going to say what he said, but you never lose to those somethings, never. And that was the mentality, right? And now Michigan is adopting that same mentality, where there is literally Ohio State Day, where they focus on Ohio State in practice. So it's absolutely something that's kind of the mentality that finally, I think, brings the rivalry back. I don't think there's one right now that's. I think right now it's fair to say it's back. right? 2 years of Michigan winning. Now we're at least back to an interesting rivalry instead of a roll your eyes because yet again Ohio State's going to win by 40 points for like the 10th year in a row.
Yes,
So
we
that's
have a
very cool.
rivalry. Yes, we have turned back the clock. Yes, we have. I
Absolutely.
never considered it not a rivalry. Of course, it's a rivalry, but I totally know where you're at with that comment. And I think people of my age, slightly younger, that remember the 1990s in particular, would never discount the rivalry in any way. But for a different generation, yes, they needed to see it. Shoot, my son used to kind of disregard my enthusiasm and my fervency and the importance that I gave it because he's like, it's not a big deal. It's not a big deal. He would say, growing up, he would always say, well, I think Wisconsin's more of a rival, or Penn State or Michigan State, because they beat us more than Michigan does. So
Wasn't there somebody, I think it was your daughter or somebody, you mentioned it on another show and you were saying like, oh, I don't even want to breathe Michigan air. Wasn't there like
yes, my daughter was all of about She was all of about 6 or 7 years old. Yes, and we were in the Detroit airport. Yes, she was doing this,
Yeah.
sitting in her seat by the gate.
That's amazing. Well, listen, always fun. It's an honor, Mark, to be on this, and really appreciate you allowing me to be a part of the show and everything else. And thank everybody in the chat for coming in today.
Yeah, absolutely, John. Thanks so much for doing it, and hopefully we'll be back here next Wednesday.
And one more time, cover your ears, Mark. Go blue. There we go. All right. Bye, everybody.